This was around 2005 and I was 15. I had science class immediately after lunch, and I sat at the front of class and the teacher put his coffee mug down on my desk as he was gesturing and writing on the board. As he backed away from the board, he bumped my desk and his mug tipped over and the coffee went all over my desk. And then it spilled onto my lap. I stood up and then, thankfully, the coffee was only warm and not hot. Realizing what had happened, he apologized and went to get some paper towels from near the sink. As he handed them to me, I looked down at my trousers and they were bone dry. His coffee mug was on my desk filled with coffee and the floor around me was dry. It's as if it never happened. My teacher and I looked at each other wondering if we'd both seen what we just saw. I still dabbed the paper on my trousers as I was confused as to what was supposed to happen next, and I was expecting something to be absorbed, but nothing happened. The paper was dry the entire time. It happened so quickly that the rest of the class didn't even notice what was happening until it was all over. When I handed him the paper towels back, he looked at me nervously. His face was as white as a sheet of paper, and he said something about strange things happening to him before, like arriving at school earlier than when he'd left home. Okay, this has bothered me for years now. My family was moving out of our home. My middle son was starting college and my husband had to start a new job. I stayed at our home with my 12-year-old daughter. I was waiting for the movers and then we were getting on the road ourselves. On the first day the mover came, I asked him to leave one mattress and said that I would pack the small TV in my car so they could pack about 85% of the house. All that is left in my bedroom is the mattress, and they're going to get that the next day. There was also a blanket and a TV, and I also needed to clean out the fridge, so I asked my daughter if she wanted the last fudgeicle. She was sitting on the mattress near the wall, and I tossed it to her. So the fudgeicle bounced off her hand and hit the wall. We both see this and look at the floor. We logically know that the fudgeicle must have fallen there, except it didn't. I moved the mattress, and I even go to grab a book and toss it to her, hoping to recreate the path that this fudgeicle had taken when I tossed it to her. We were both losing our minds. The furniture is gone, so it cannot be hiding anywhere. Also, it's a frozen chocolate fudgeicle, and I have a really light carpet. Not only that, but I have to shampoo it tomorrow before we take up and finally move out of here. But the strange thing is that we never found it. The movers came, I cleaned up the carpets. I did a walkthrough with the agency that was going to rent out the house for us, but there was still no fudgeicle. There was no stains to clean up, no wrapper, no stick, nothing. My daughter, now 20, recalls this very clearly and has brought it up as the weirdest thing that ever happened to her. We still have no idea how or why this happened. I'm pretty sure my daughter, in an alternate dimension, has a story about how I had nothing in my hands and a fudgeicle landed on her lap. I've posted on this sub before, but I figure I'd share it here as well. So I'm babysitting my friend's kids who I've come close to and watch pretty often. The boy is 8 and loves to build Angry Bird levels out of blocks and stuff. He likes me to record him on my phone so that he can watch himself talk and make these levels. You know the way kids are. So anyways, he's telling me what he's doing and making sure that I'm getting everything in this video because Angry Bird levels are serious business to him. Suddenly he stops and says, "Make sure you get the fish too. Get it in the video." At this point I have no clue what this kid is talking about, but he keeps looking down at the floor where obviously there isn't any fish. I decide to go along and just play along with him and pretend to get the quote-unquote fish in the video. Well, fast forward a couple of hours and we're hanging out in Walmart, just walking around to waste some time. We start walking down the pet aisle and he stops suddenly. He's in front of me, so I kind of just bump into him a little bit and I ask him, "Hey buddy, you okay?" I walk around him and look down to see what he's staring at. And lo and behold, there's a frickin' dead fish laying on the ground. And the kid is staring at it as if he's in a trance. Immediately I think back earlier in the day about what he insisted on about that fish being on the floor. Obviously, when he told me that there was nothing there. I tried asking him about it, but he didn't seem to want to talk about it at all. So we just took off. It's always sort of freaked me out. So I was on my porch on a Saturday morning and people were walking around and stuff in that area. And there's this older middle-aged woman walking, but she then suddenly stops and took a step back and then forward again really fast. It was in the corner of my eye. I wasn't looking at her directly. It was like somebody pressed rewind and then forward instantly again. Like it wasn't even humanly possible for her to do that. I tried to do it and it's impossible, there's no way. It was like watching this lady was like seeing a glitch in a video game. It freaked me out so much that I went inside for the rest of the day and didn't come back out. I'm used to seeing people walk outside around the house, but that just freaked me out. Today my dad called me for dinner and I went to wash my hands and I saw my sister's head and saw her shirt sticking out from the bathroom door saying, "Hi to our cat." I went to go wash my hands at the kitchen sink. Then near the beginning of dinner, my dad asks my mom when my sister needed to get picked up. I was confused. I went looking and sure enough, my sister wasn't in the house. I can't believe I saw my sister when she wasn't home. I have other things that I could mention about glitches in the Matrix, but I haven't posted them yet as I'm not comfortable doing that. I feel like this is going to sound insane, but I've been thinking about this for 2 days now and feel like I have to post this to see if anybody possibly has any explanation. 2 nights ago, me and my girlfriend are lying in bed with YouTube on and the TV is in the bedroom. I watch it while she sits on her phone or reads. I have the YouTube autoplay feature on, so when one video ends, it just immediately plays the next one. I was watching a ton of Nick Merckx videos at one night. For those who don't know, Nick Merckx is a gaming streamer and YouTuber. He usually streams on Twitch, but he also has a YouTube channel. So I ended up falling asleep while the videos are playing, and the TV is on lower than half volume because it's late, and it was pretty much just background noise at that point, honestly. I don't know how long exactly I was asleep, but it couldn't have been that long because my girlfriend was still awake and reading when this happened. But as I'm asleep, I hear clear as day, and extremely loudly, Nick Merckx himself go, "Wake up," in the most stern, bone-chilling tone ever. The only way I've ever heard anybody else say that is when Spider-Man was Far From Home, when Mysterio and Spider-Man are fighting each other, and Mysterio goes, "It's time to wake up." That's the only thing that I can compare it to. I jerked awake right away and was facing the TV, and I swear to God for a split second I saw Nick Merckx's face full on the screen, straight into the camera, and then it immediately went back into gameplay footage with Nick Merckx talking to his teammates while he's playing games. It's like 1 second he was talking to me, and the next it was like nothing ever happened. I looked over at my girlfriend and she was staring at the TV with this shocked look on her face. I asked her, "Did you hear that?" And she said yeah, and sounded scared as she told me. I picked up the remote and rewinded a full minute into the video, and we both sat there watching it through, and nothing happened while this footage played back. He never once screamed "wake up," nor does he go in full face cam in the video. He only ever does full face cam in the intros, and as we look back, there's no full face cam at all in that video that I rewound. I have no clue what happened. Can somebody please explain this to me? After this happened, I didn't fall asleep for a while, and we stayed up together freaking out about an hour and a half talking about what just happened. The next night, we both decided just to keep the TV off when going to bed. So yes, she definitely experienced what I did and was a witness to what happened. And I don't believe it was any kind of an ad, as I have YouTube Red specifically because when I watch YouTube every night, I don't like to watch the ads. Okay, this is freaky. I had something very similar happen to me as a kid. I was lying on my stomach in front of the TV on the floor, surrounded by like 8 other kids of varying ages. I think I might have been the youngest one out of all of them. But anyways, we were watching this cooking show, and it's some guy with a large mustache and a chef's hat cooking something complicated. He keeps repeating that the viewers should be attentive at his stage or something like that. I had turned on my elbows to yell back at one of the kids that was messing with me when all of a sudden this man on the TV yelled, "Knock it off." The camera had been focused on him from the side when I turned back immediately. He was about to lean forward and down when the camera changed to the front of him. His face filled the screen and he screamed my name and told me to shut up. Everybody in the room was silent, and the man just continued cooking like nothing had happened. And my friends never brought it up or anything after that. I assumed he was leaning over towards the audience or something. Maybe there was a kid there in the front row messing around and happened to have the same name as me. But obviously I still think about it decades later. That's how strange this all was. It would have been nice to rewind the TV back then in order to try to catch him saying it again. This happened to me a couple of days ago and it still kind of weirds me out. So I go to this local thrift store at least once a week or so to get new reading material. And I like getting good deals on them. It's always a plus because I like to read so much. I've gone to this specific store for around a year or so, and while they never had a great selection, I picked up around 7 books in total. I went there a few days ago to inspect, and to my disappointment, the book section was gone completely and replaced with a clothing section. I was sad, of course, since this location is a stone's throw away, but I guess the paperback books aren't as popular anymore as they used to be, and probably they just don't turn a huge profit or whatever. And there was an associate nearby stocking the shelves, and I asked about the books, and the response, "We've never had a book section at this location." I thought that was an odd response, since I know I purchased books here before, but I didn't recognize the worker, so I thought he might just be new. After that, I found a few items that I liked and went to the register. While I was checking out, I asked the cashier about the book section and got basically the same response. "I don't remember having a book section here. You must be thinking about somewhere else." I then asked how long they worked there, and they said they'd been working there for 3 years. I have gone there in the past year, and I know that I bought books there, so logically, I was flabbergasted. But I just brushed it off and just checked out and I left. I mean, what else could I do? After this, I checked on Google for that store, and none of the customer pictures had a book section in them. Pictures from the thrift store itself show the outside and the main entrance. The books were usually kept in the far corner, and from what I can tell, there is pixelated pictures. It does not seem like the taller bookshelves were there, but I'm not 100% sure. I don't keep any receipts for small stuff like this, but I still have the books, and I specifically remember being in that store buying those books, which is why I'm still so confused about it. I'm not sure if this goes here, but it's worth a shot. I had a day at work 3 years ago that I still can't explain. At the time, I was in marketing for a financial institution, and I would show up at 7:30 or 8, take a lunch at around 12, and be out of there by 4 to 4:30. It was very consistent. The work was interesting enough, and I genuinely did like the job. My typical day would be spent on calls, working, talking to coworkers, bathroom breaks, etc. Overall, pretty normal, I guess. I would also add that I'm perfectly healthy, and I'm in my early 30s and I'm a female. In other words, it's not like this was some job I hated or I had any medical issues that would have caused this, and I'm mentioning this because it's important for the story. So one day it starts out like any other. I get to work at around 7:30, I grab a coffee, sit down, log in, and blank. The world just goes blank. Not dark, just blank. The next thing I know, it's 4:30 in the afternoon. I feel off, confused, like I'm not fully in my body. It's super weird, but that's the most accurate thing that I can say. It's almost as if I snapped out of a trance or some kind of a long nap, and the whole world feels like it's off. The colors are really weird and orange, and the general office sound seems metallic or something. I had to check my computer clock, my watch, my phone, etc. to confirm that it was 4:30 in the afternoon. I couldn't believe it. I literally just lost an entire day. The lights continue to have this weird orange hue to them, almost like when you come out of a cave or something. I asked my coworker if I've been seen all day at work, and she says of course, that we also went to lunch together. I drove home in a daze, feeling like I woke up from some long nap. I just felt off, and I couldn't remember anything I did that day. The thing is, I still don't remember any of it. Even now, all these years later, I cannot account for those hours. Apparently I took calls, I turned in work, I went to lunch, everything, but I have no recollection of it at all. Who knows what happened? I lost my old phone, which was my work phone. I do work on ladders and break phones often, so having a spare phone to use for work was amazing when I got my new phone. This was back on December 1st, 2020, and we ripped apart the entire house looking for it. We even looked through all the couch crevices, as they're all pretty much open. You can go in with your hand, and you can search the entire area, in and around those couches, or anywhere I might have thought that I dropped it. But everything was clean and checked, and we cleaned again dozens of times to try to find that phone. And we couldn't find it anywhere. I mentioned the couch and couch crevices because I thought that's where I left it the last, and I thought maybe it fell somewhere inside of the couch, but we took everything apart like I mentioned and no phone. We spent months looking for this stupid extra phone and we never found it because you know how expensive these things are. Well anyways, today on Halloween, my new phone goes missing. I knew it was in the house, but I had little idea where. My husband jokes around, wouldn't it be freaky if we found my old phone? And just as he was saying that, I reached into the side of the couch with all those crevices and I found my old phone. It was less than an inch from the edge of where my new phone was on the couch, or where I had last seen it. My husband was just as freaked out as I was and promises and swears to me that he's not pulling any kind of a prank. I posted this story on a different sub and everybody said that I was just lying. But I'm not lying. I never found my new phone, I just have this old one now. At least I have a phone, but this situation with my old phone replacing my new phone after I lost the old one originally, like I explained, is just really freaking me out. A little bit of a backstory. I live in Australia, in probably your busiest and most popular capital city. I own an apartment with my girlfriend in the tallest building in the state, being 86 stories high. Our apartment is on the 56th floor, and there are only 4 apartments on our floor. My girlfriend's family is visiting from Finland for Christmas. Tonight, being Christmas Day, we were all hanging out in our apartment. My girlfriend's sister wanted some soda, so we had to go for a walk to a store that was about 15 minutes away because most of the stores are closed. My girlfriend, her sister, and I left my girlfriend's mother behind in the apartment. Everything's normal. We get back to the building with our Coke in hand. We step into an empty elevator and press our floor number. About 2 minutes go by whilst we're in the elevator, and the elevator then tells us that we're at the 56th floor. Being our floor, we press the button. Our floor is the only floor that we can choose to go to because we have a swipe card to use the elevator. We step out of the elevator and walk to my apartment, which is down a short hallway. We get to our door and my girlfriend notices that the numbers on our door look quite dirty, as they're chrome and normally shiny. It's definitely our door, 0356. I turn the handle to open the door, only to find all the lights off and a man sitting on our couch, who I've never seen before in my life. He looks straight at me but says nothing. Thinking that I had opened the door to the wrong apartment, which is pretty much impossible after what I just explained, I quickly stepped out and closed the door. The number on the door read 0314. Now, apart from this being already quite strange, from floor 10 to 25, all the floors have 8 apartments and are laid out completely differently. Before I walked into what I thought was my apartment, there was definitely only 4 apartments. All 3 of us were freaking out because we all saw 03.56 on the door and spoke about the dirty numbers, and all 3 of us heard the elevator say level 56. All of this happened within no more than 40 seconds. We give each other a weird look and walk back to the elevator to go up to our floor. I get up to the elevator and notice that all 4 elevators are now at the very top floor. There's no way that they could have all gotten there that quickly, and I just think to myself, what in the world is going on? This morning I sat down with my girlfriend and my sister, and we talked about what happened. According to my girlfriend and her sister, the guy on the couch looked very similar to me, though without all the tattoos. We have all agreed that just before we stepped out of the elevator, we all distinctly remember smelling burnt toast for some reason. Once we got back to our apartment, all 3 of us noticed that things that we remembered leaving in certain places were different in the apartment now. All 3 of us noticed that their mother was acting a bit off and looking very, very slightly unexplainably different. Everything sort of just settled down and the 3 of us just stepped into the balcony and smelled the exact same smell of burnt toast. We were on the balcony for no more than 30 seconds. Once we stepped back inside, everything was back to normal the way it was that we remembered it, and their mother was also back to the way we remembered as well. Could it be possible that we transcended to an alternate dimension? Could the smell have been a sign of this at all? I'm not sure if this belongs here, but here goes. I remember the first moment that I was aware. I must have been about 3.5, and I was standing in front of our apartment, right in between the door and this huge grandfather clock. I was just standing there, I think because I stopped dead in my tracks due to this event, and I was basically blasted into my body. Just as I was there, all of a sudden, looking at my dog who was walking by, I was able to acknowledge that that was my dog. I knew her. I recognized everything. I was aware of who I was, and it felt familiar. I also acknowledged that before that very moment, I was in a floating grayness. It wasn't like I had any sense or awareness in that state, but I could recall being in that place. That's pretty much it. It was a very defining moment in my life. Not only was it my first memory, but it's very interesting to me because I was so young, yet very aware that I was all of a sudden in my body, and that I had just been in a totally different dimension. Have you ever had an experience of something similar happen to you? I've told this story to a few people, but nobody can relate. I've been a lurker for many years on Reddit, but I had to make an account to post something that's been eating away at me, and I need to get this off my chest. I've told my friends, but they simply don't know how to react or say that I guess they ultimately just don't believe me. I wasn't the only one who saw it. My girlfriend did too. We both saw it clear as day, so it couldn't have been a hallucination where we both saw the same thing. My ex and I have gone to Melbourne for our anniversary and spent a few days exploring the city and enjoying a break from the boring old hole that is Canberra. On our second to last day, we had gone to the Melbourne Zoo and had a blast as we were both obsessed with animals. On leaving the zoo, we walked for a bit, but we both began to feel a weird sense of terror building up. We looked over at this oval where there were maybe 100 or more people, either playing or watching soccer, only to see a large, and I mean large, maybe twice or 3 times the size of a plane, darker than black, multi-tentacled blob, oozing something like a fog. It had 2 large eyes that shined like an animal caught in the headlights, but no color, only white. It started to stare at us. Other people were looking in that direction too, but nobody was reacting. Well, heck, neither were we. We didn't say anything. We stared at it for a bit and then immediately forgot what we saw and just kept going through our day until 4 hours later my ex grabbed my arm and says, "You saw that right. I'm not crazy." At first I was confused until I remembered the horror I saw leaving the zoo with her. To say we were both rattled was an understatement, but after 5 minutes or so of freaking out, our rationality kicked in and we concluded that it must have been some kind of a large art balloon or something like that, and that once we got back to the hotel, something of that size would be easy to confirm online for the very real, non-paranormal object that it was. But we found nothing. Absolutely nothing. We searched in search forums. We went to the Reddit forum for the city of Melbourne and the news, and nothing. Art pages, absolutely nothing. We did, however, find an article with somebody in 2012 in Melbourne claiming to see something similar in a UFO page. I don't believe in UFOs, but I don't know anymore. Can anybody shed some light on this? And does anybody have any similar experiences to what we went through? Let me preface this by saying I don't drink alcohol or do any drugs or have been diagnosed with any kind of a mental disorder in my life. This happened about 1.5 years ago. I am a 27-year-old male and I live in an apartment in Upper Michigan alone usually. One night after coming home from work, I decided to make myself and a friend of mine that was staying for a week some chicken and rice. My friend was still at work, so I timed it so it'd be ready when he got home. He arrived at around 8 p.m. I started to cook around 7:30. I took the chicken out of the package, seasoned it, and threw it on a frying pan. I also started up some rice in the rice cooker. I set out the chicken and rice on the table, poured a couple of glasses of milk, and put the frying pan in the sink. Now comes around 8 o'clock. My buddy texts me to let him go in because I only have one key for the building. I go down there and I tell him that I've made dinner for both of us, so we didn't have to order any takeout like we had been doing the previous couple of nights. I opened my apartment door with my friend behind me, excited to show my gourmet meal to my friend. I turn the corner into the dining room and I'm greeted with an empty table. My friend starts to giggle, thinking that I pranked him or something, but I'm freaking out like crazy. I go to the sink and the pan isn't in the sink either. It's in the drawer. I touched the rice cooker and it wasn't even warm. Now at this point I was worried that somebody had broken into my apartment, but I opened up the fridge and staring at me right in the face was the raw, uncooked chicken still in its packaging. The bag of rice wasn't open either, and at this point I was just flipping out, trying to tell my friend that I really did cook for us, but he just laughs hysterically at how crazy I look and how insane that entire situation looked from his perspective. He went out to get some takeout while I just sat there in the kitchen trying to find proof that I did indeed cook this meal. But there was no mess, there were no dirty dishes, there was nothing. And what was I supposed to do about this entire situation? My friend still to this day doesn't believe me. I threw away the chicken and rice just in case they were haunted or something. I took a few days to gather myself and I booked an appointment to see a psychologist who provided me with very little help on this matter, suggesting that it was some complex form of sleepwalking. The experience of cooking was too real. I remember specifically, like, how I thought I added too much seasoning or how long it took for the burner to heat up. I know how hard it is to believe this, but it actually happened. If I was my friend, I wouldn't believe me either. The experience was too surreal, and to this day I struggle to find any kind of an explanation. I remember when I discovered this sub back in 2014. My husband and I went to Tucson, Arizona for a weekend day vacation, and a guy almost hit us in the parking lot. We never stopped, but the dude did. The next morning my chest hurt really bad where my seatbelt was, and I was bruised on that area in my chest. My husband's leg was covered in bruises as well, and I'd never seen bruises on his leg until that point, because he doesn't usually bruise. Anyways, my chest hurt so bad that I could barely breathe. I ended up going to the urgent care center there, and they had no explanation for why I felt that way. I had to cancel our plans of going to the biopark because my chest pains were so terrible. But after that awful experience, only a few people believed me, which actually did mean a lot because so many people didn't. I even shared pics of my urgent care discharge paper and my husband's bruised leg to everybody, but still very few believed me. There were a few other minor things that happened that make me think this was some kind of a car accident that didn't happen, but they're a bit fuzzy now. In the early 1970s, my son was about 3 years old. We bought him one of those huge plastic balls you used to get at Kmart. This ball had a colorful picture of Mickey Mouse on it, and it was one of my son's favorite toys. We lived in a small third-floor apartment building. My son loved to sit in the dining area, his back a few feet away from the wall, and throw this huge ball behind him so that it would hit the wall and the ball would bounce off the wall, zoom over his head towards me. I would then catch the ball and toss it back to him, and we would repeat this. This one beautiful morning, the sun was streaming into the apartment. My son positions his hands on each side of the ball, brings his arms up quickly, and accomplishes a perfect throw of the ball, and before the ball even hits the wall, it vanished into thin air, right before my eyes. I was so dumbfounded. All I could do was stare at the empty air with my mouth open, not hearing the most instant tap of the sound the ball made when it hit the wall. My son whipped his head around and body around to look for the ball. He checked the wall, then the floor behind him, then around him, but there was no ball. There was no finding it anywhere, and he asked, "Mama, where's my ball?" I mean, it literally just vanished. I never talked about this incident with anybody, so fast forward to when my son was in his early 20s. We reminisced about his childhood when, out of the blue, he asked me if I remembered his huge Mickey Mouse ball. I carefully said that I did. He then asked me if I remembered the ball that just poof disappeared after he threw it behind him. It was a weird moment for me. He remembered it happening, and I could not wonder if it really did happen at that point because it had been so long. We still talk about it occasionally, and we have discussed it in front of his wife and kids. We may not understand now what happened, or even back then what we experienced. And to this day, I half expect that ball to just appear out of thin air and bounce back into reality. When I was 9 or so, I was riding belly first on my skateboard. I wasn't going quick or anything, barely moving at all actually. And suddenly my throat burst open. Blood poured all over my skateboard and the floor, drenching my clothes. My mom rushed me to the hospital and made me hold tea towels over my throat to stop the bleeding. All I could think about in the ER was how much I wanted to go to the beach that day and how angry I was that this didn't happen. I asked my mom if we could still go and she said no way. She was really worried about all the blood. I told her that it had stopped, but she was confused when I took off the towels, as when that happened there was no blood. Nothing at all. When we got home there was no blood on the ground or on the skateboard. Yet my mom, my brother, and myself all remember this happening. Probably my first and only experience with phantom blood, I guess. Also, there was another glitch that greatly affected me, even to this day. During high school, I'd always been at the top of my class, doing all the ATAR subjects, and even physics in year 11. Everything was going great. I had a great group of friends and I was enjoying life. Then one day, just out of the blue, everything changed. I woke up and checked Facebook. Everything was normal, but my best mate never responded to me. All my friends, all of them, acted like they didn't know me. Everyone at school knew me, but treated me very differently. Even the teachers and my mom. People told me how I was acting so different in confidence, but I hadn't changed a thing. To this day, this confuses me. I had failed every class in this world. Even though I knew everything, I was still apparently failing all my classes. I was like a completely different person before somehow. Oddly enough, was something I really wished for a few years ago. Things were so different too. The beach was always dirty. There hadn't been a single day that I hadn't heard a plane fly over, which is weird because I never used to. I puzzled all my old friends with how much I know and how smart I actually am and how much I knew about them. To me, they were my best friends and I knew everything about them. I was even called a stalker by my ex, of whom I apparently have never dated in this reality, because I knew so much about her and her family, and we dated for 5 years. The only thing that doesn't seem to exist now is a cabin I used to use with my parents as a kid. They don't recall it existing, but I have so many memories there that it's impossible that this place never existed. To this day, I'm greatly confused by all of this. I have new friends, a new job, and a new life. I am a different person in many ways, but both to myself and my family and many others.